Chris for HobbyKing.com, and welcome to the product profile of the Quantum 3-axis gimbal for the 9XR Pro. Now, if you're not familiar with this product, definitely refer over to the other video where we go through the product itself and give a little bit of a description. In this video, what we're going to be doing is opening up the 9XR, showing you how to install it and calibrate it to the radio system itself. Now, first thing we're going to do is do a little bit of a unboxing so you see what you get right over here. So when you open up the box, it's shipped in. It's definitely well packaged in a foam container. When you pull it out, it's got a little baggie, which we see right down here, which has some accessories, and the gimbal itself is right onto the inside. Now, this is one gimbal, and it is convertible for either the left or the right-hand side, as well as it has a couple option parts that come in here, which actually allow it to be converted, lock out the third axis, so you can actually have two of the same sticks on your radio if you want, as well as create a throttle ratchet on one of them as well. That'll allow you to have a total of up to 6 axes on your fingertips instead of just 4 on a conventional radio system. So other than the accessory parts that we have right over here that create the different types of gimbals, left, right, as well as throttle ratchet, you get the nice CNC gimbal, 3-axis gimbal, as well as the user manual, installation manual, and that's what we're going to be following today. So let's go ahead and get into it. First thing we need, of course, is our 9XR Pro. And go ahead and remove your module first thing. Pull off the back rear cover and remove your battery. And go ahead and set that aside. As far as tools, the only thing you're really going to need for your tool is just a small Phillips screwdriver. Now, there's a series of screws that, if you're in the manual, that just need to be removed right along here. And now these are at different lengths. So what I recommend you do is, once you loosen all these screws, is to set yourself out a piece of paper, draw little circles that are related to the radio itself, and you can just set them and poke a little hole and put those through the piece of paper so that you know the installation when they go back in here in regards to the length of the proper screws. In this case, what I'm going to try and do is just go ahead and loosen up all these screws and remove the panel, leaving the screws in the back panel so that I don't have to remove the screws and set them all the way down. So just go ahead and follow in the instructions, the screws on this, and all we're going to do is go ahead and lift off the back panel. Okay, so I've got all the screws loosened on the back of my 9XR Pro. What I'm going to do is just carefully lift this up so I don't lose any of their positions. I did it in one take. I'm going to just set that off to the side. So back of your 9XR Pro. This is a pretty powerful radio. It's the system itself. It's of course running Open TX, 9XRE. You know, there's a lot of different softwares that can go on this. It's got an ARM processor in there, and what's really nice about this particular radio is it's fully programmable. There's a lot of features that aren't integrated into this radio that allow for upgrades such as this to happen after the fact. From encoders, to beeps, the UART ports, all kinds of things that can happen with this radio. So it's a phenomenal base radio for a start of a project, whether it be robotics, multi-rotors, and in this case 3-axis gimbals, giving you, if you use 2 of these, a total of 6 axes at your fingertips like we had mentioned. Now, since I fly mode 2, I'm actually going to be replacing, I'm going to hold this up, I'm going to actually be replacing the right-hand stick on this particular one, leaving the throttle available on this stick right over in here. So I'll have the 3-axis on this side right over here. So when you flip it over, just make sure that you remove the right stick depending on your one, because you're actually looking at it from the reverse side. Couple of times, couple of people that have installed this had taken it apart and actually installed it on the wrong side, flipped it over, and went, oh, smack. Yes, I was one of them. So anyway, I'm just giving you that heads up so you don't do the same mistake. So it's fairly straightforward and simple. So there are 4 screws which are outlined in the manual right here that hold in the gimbal. All you really need to do first thing per the manual is go ahead and remove the 2 wires that go to the standard potentiometers on this particular gimbal. That frees that up. We're going to remove these 4 screws and just pull this straight on out. I'll go ahead and do that. All right, so I've got the 4 screws loosened up. I'm just going to go ahead and pull the gimbal right on out, freeing it up, and there it is. I need to just get these 2 screws out right there, and we are free. So it opens up the access hole pretty easily. Now what we want to do is go ahead and take these wires and kind of move them out of the way giving us room to go ahead and install the gimbal on this particular one. So in the kit, it actually comes with a little piece of two-piece tape. So what this is intended to do is go ahead and take off one side, and we'll roll right over here. We just move these cables out of the way, and you can actually just stick it to the side, group up the cables, and you stick it right to the tape, and that just holds them out of the way, away from this. Now what I'm gonna do in this video is actually just take this connector right over here, loosen it up, and move this out of the way for my installation. And this just ensures that I don't pinch any wires while I'm doing the install, and then I'm gonna tape it after the fact. Now we're going to take the gimbal, and you're going to notice there's 3 sensors right over here. These are magnetic Hall sensors instead of potentiometers. For the installation, we're going to actually be using the sensor is going to be going towards the top of the radio itself, and so that's going to be our orientation when we go ahead and install it. So we're just going to make sure the wires are nice and clear free here. We're going to hold these out of the way, checking for any other debris or wires or screws that might be in the way. We're just going to lightly set this in, get it lined up with the holes. And there it's installed. I'm just going to go ahead and lightly hold this up so when it's set down it's not going to be pushing up. I'm going to take the 4 screws that we removed for the other gimbal, go ahead and get those installed. All we need to do is put in our wires according to the manual, plug this back in, move the little piece of tape out of the way, and before we put the back cover on, we'll just do the quick calibration, make sure everything's going the correct direction. It's going to be that simple. This process shouldn't take you more than 15 minutes. So let me go ahead and get these screws in, and we're going to talk about the cabling. All right, so now that I've got the 4 screws installed and the gimbal is firmly in place, what I need to do is go ahead and go back to that 2-sided tape, which is going to hold that wiring over to the side so it doesn't interfere with our gimbal action. So I'm just going to go ahead and move the gimbal into the down position, go ahead and pull the tape off, stick it to the side of the transmitter, remove the other side. I'm going to go ahead and plug the cabling into the bottom, making sure it's nice and seated. I'm going to group those wires together as tightly as possible and then just stick them to the side of the TX to that 2-sided tape. And that's all there is to it right there. So what we want to do is check for clearance right here as we go back and forth, that these cables don't interfere with the action of the gimbal itself. It's not binding up on that right in there. And we're nice and clear on that. So then the only other thing we need to address are just these 3 extra wires right over here. Now we look at this as an XYZ type of situation. Instead of this being Z, they're looking at the transmitter as the up and down motion as being Z. Just be aware of that versus the 3rd axis. So when it's related to that. So it's simple to take a look at this. We move this back and forth since it's side to side. Moving the transmitter side to side, then that's our X axis. So that one's fairly easy, and we can see that it's rotating on this sensor, so it's this sensor which is our X. Just go ahead and pull that out. If we take a look at our manual, it clearly has X related to 134. Go ahead and get that plugged in right there. Next one related to that is going to be our, they're calling it our Z axis, which is this. A little backwards for me because I'm looking at the transmitter looking up. But that one just goes and plugs into the first port, just our original port right over there. And then this one right over here, we've added extra length on this. Now you've got a couple different options when you plug this in. So initially we have this designed as replacing your yaw input, which would be right over here on your radio. What's nice about this radio is it's fully programmable on your inputs so that you can actually remap your channels or your stick inputs or your potentiometers, in this case Hall sensors, to any different position to be used on this radio. So potentially you don't have to remove this particular cable. You could actually reassign it to one of these potentiometers and map this as whatever channel you want it to be on this particular radio. But for this demonstration, we're going to do it as per the manual, which is going to be replacing your yaw, creating a 3-axis flight control. So I'm just going to go right over here. You can clearly see our yaw on this one is this potentiometer. It plugs into our second position right over here. So I'm going to unplug that, bring the cable on over, plug that one in, and rotate those on down. Okay, so before I proceed any further, what I want to do is go ahead and plug in the battery, flip it around, take a look at the screen itself, and just do the quick calibration, make sure everything's going correctly on the sticks. If that's the case, I'm going to go ahead and clean up the wiring a little bit with the included zip tie. We just put on the back cover, and we're all set and ready to give it a fly. All right, so first thing we're going to do is just go ahead and plug our battery radio back into the balance port. And I'm going to go ahead and spin this radio around so you guys can take a look at it. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and turn it on. And from the initial splash screen, we've got our normal bars, which would indicate the position of our stick. We can see right here our throttle moving up and down as I'm rotating that. But since we've plugged in the new gimbal into our 3 positions, which would have been our yaw and elevator aileron, or depending on if you're motor 1 or 2, as I move this stick around, you're able to see it move the sticks up and down this way, and now if I twist it, you can see our yaw is over here as well. But if we take a look right over here on this, you can see it's not quite centered up with that. So what we need to do is actually just do a calibration on this to the radio itself. So if we hold the button right over here, which would be your left-hand side, push on the left-hand side, it goes into the menu setting of the radio itself. We're going to scroll on over to page 9 right here, which is our calibration for the radio. We just select menu to start that out. It says set everything to min point, so we're just going to do that and go ahead and press menu when done. Now we're going to go ahead and move our extents, so we're going to go up and down to get the calibration of that one. And I normally like to do these one at a time. And then when we're all set, we'll just move it back to centers and press menu when done. And that's it, we're all done. So if I exit on out of this, so we're all done. So I'm going to go ahead and just cycle the switch off, turn it back on. And now we can clearly see that none of those bars are on that cross center point. And if I move that off of it, you can see it coming off and coming off those centers. But if I let go, it's right in the center of that. So we've got a very good, nice calibration right out of this gimbal. We move up and down. We can see that it's going to full extents on both sides. And when I do yaw here at the bottom, all the way to full extents there, and the throttle. So everything is absolutely working as it's supposed to on the radio. It's all been calibrated on out. So I'm going to go ahead and just roll this around, unplug my battery, make sure to turn off the transmitter, unplug the battery, and we're just going to tidy this up, put the back cover on it. All right, so per the instructions, we've got this cable right over here that is crossing over. Now, we can clearly see that the gimbal has to move around, so we want to make sure that we've got nice slack up in this area where these cables aren't going to be binding or pulling on the radio itself. So we want to give ourselves enough slack right over here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this on down over by these cables. Move this one out of the way. These 2 cables I want to have slack up around near right in here so that this has plenty of slack in this area. And we can see we've got plenty of motion, nice control right in here. I'm going to take that little included zip tie, link these 3 cables around, these 2, loosely put it through. And what I'm going to do is rotate this at its extents so that they're being pulled as far as they necessarily need. Give it a little more slack. And just give that a little bit of tight. Make sure we're clear. And we're all set right there. So I'm going to just leave that tucked right underneath there. Just give that a clip, put on the back cover. Okay, so I got that clean. So I'm going to take the back cover and go ahead and slip this on. And as I'm dropping it down on there, I'm going to check all the cabling as it's sliding down to make sure we get nice flush contact before we go ahead and put these screws in. Make sure we don't get any of these wires pinched by the upper cover. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure these are inboard and free. All right, so I've got the cover down and it's flushed I got the nice snap sound when I put it on down, so I know we've got it all snapped into position. Our balance port connector for power right on the back side is popping up on through there. But before I go ahead and put the screws or tighten the screws in, I'm not going to flip this over because I don't want them to fall out. I'm just going to move the sticks and make sure I don't feel any of those cables getting bound up. It feels ultra smooth, so no problems there. So I'm just going to go ahead and tighten up these screws. All right, so there we go. I've got everything plugged, all the screws put back in. I got my battery plugged in. I'm going to go ahead and just power this on. We've got no bars kicked to one side, so we know that the calibration is still held in there. I'm going to rotate this, and everything is working as it should. So this was a successful installation. No problems. It looks good, nice and free. You can see how buttery smooth these gimbals are, these ball bearings, full CNC. Absolutely beautiful gimbal system on this. Now, we've got some other adjustments we're going to just talk about right over here. As far as the length of this, it's got a lock collar right underneath on the back side, on the bottom side, which allows you to tweak against this. You can thread this up or down for different lengths, whatever you feel comfortable with. Whether you be a pinch flyer or a thumb flyer, this knurled knob right over here gives you plenty of traction for that yaw effect, as well as a divot on the center if you're a thumb flyer as well. But you can adjust that length for whatever your purpose, especially if you're using these gimbals on, like, say, a tray radio or a DIY little ground station. You can adjust those up so that you got finer control using it like this. And since it's a threaded rod, you could even 3D print or make different knobs for yourself, whatever your flying style is or whatever suits you. But anyway, that is the new 3-axis gimbal for the 9XR Pro. You can see it's an extremely straightforward, easy installation. No problems, shouldn't take you more than like 10-15 minutes like I mentioned. Calibrates out nicely. Fantastic upgrade. And if you wanted to put 2 of them in here, you could actually put 2 of them in here and actually tie the extra line that was going from the potentium and the other ones. You can actually disable 2 of these, tie into those, and actually have a full 6 axes, like I mentioned, right at your fingertips, which are fully mappable via the 9XR software. As always, guys, subscribe to our YouTube channels. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next time.